welcome back to ASBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Elliott, Greg, which means we are in preview mode. We are in the heavyweight division, top ranked show on Saturday, 13th of April at the American Bank Center in Texas, USA. We are, of course, talking about the big heavyweight, big baby, Jared Anderson, as he faces his next test against Ryad Merhy, as I said, in Texas, USA. Undefeated Jared Anderson facing Merhy, who's got a pretty good record of 32-2. Big puncher in his own right, albeit haven't campaigned quite a lot of cruiserweight. But we're not getting too much into the tail of the tape, mate. I'm going to straight in. Jared Anderson's the A side here. He's the favourite. He's the one everyone talks about as a potential future star in the heavyweight division. And that is the question I'm asking you, simply, Elliott. Is Jared Anderson the future of the heavyweight division?
Oh, no, thank you very much for that eloquent introduction, and thank you very much for having me on. It's a tough question. Jared Anderson's 24 years old. Like you say, there's a lot of hype around Jared Anderson. But equally, I think like 21, 24 years, still a baby division. And my concern really is 16-0 now. Like, how fast do you progress him? Because like the champions in that division are still the champions. I don't think he's on that level, frankly. And there's still some big fighters around that division, which I think we saw with Charles Martin, that fight against Charles Martin, may not be as advanced as we think. Not necessarily no criticism towards him. Like I said, he's still very young. My concern would be how you match him to maintain that momentum and push him on in the heavyweight division. So, for example, I mean, if you match him, oh yes, he could obviously be one of the futures of the heavyweight division, but he go too hard, too heavy, and he gets battered a couple of times by some sort of, top 10, ranked fighter, world level fighters. All of a sudden, that stock falls. And I look at him when I think of other fighters, young fighters like Daniel Dubois, or even we've talked about previously, like Jalalov, for example. Like, where is Jared Anderson against those kind of names? So I think he needs very, very careful management and especially at this stage of his career. But I'm not really prepared to launch into a full scale. Yes, he's the future of heavyweight boxing, but I think we'll find next maybe 2 or 3 years, depending on how he's matched and who he comes up against, as to whether he can actually be there. If you think, no, Joshua is still quite young, relatively young as a heavyweight as well, so he's not going to go anywhere, I don't think, that soon. I think he's obviously keen to sort of stick around and take the sort of third 3-time world title championship, or at least have another go at sort of Usyk, for example. So there's really probably a couple of years left in those guys, I think. So for me, Jared Anderson needs to be managed very, very carefully over the next 2 or 3 years to sort of position himself to maybe have a go, but not too early against some of those guys, frankly, at the moment. But what about yourself? Do you think he's the future, or do you think, again, like me, urge call, where are you with it?
And I'm agreeing with you. I'm erring on the side of caution. I'm not going to put my neck on the line and say, he's the single sole future of the heavyweight division when you've got fighters, as you mentioned. I mean, Joshua and Fury are what, 34, 35, 33, 34, something like that. Joe Parker's still young enough heavyweight. Daniel Dubois, obviously, Jalalov, as you mentioned. Even Moses Atama, who's what, 18, 19, coming up through the ranks, obviously, he's on a far lower level than Anderson right now, but he's looked impressive so far. There's always fresh heavyweights coming through. And yeah, I'm not going to say he is the single future of the heavyweight division, but he's definitely one of the futures of the heavyweight division. I think, a lot of people would say that he could potentially win a world title, and I probably wouldn't really disagree. But I still think we've got a lot to learn about him. As you mentioned, big puncher. The only fight he didn't win by a stoppage was that Charles Martin one. July last year. So, yeah, he had to show something different in that fight. For me, I agree with you. Timing wise, I kind of want to see him fight more fringe level fighters, or even fighters who are probably over the hill but have campaigned at world level regularly, because that shows us where he's at then. So yeah, I think there's still a lot to learn about Jared Anderson, but I have been impressed so far, and I think that he can go far. I mentioned there, mate, about potentially winning a world title in the future. A lot of people think that could be the case, me probably included. But just how soon can he win a world title? Obviously, we're in April now of 2024. Did he win one in the next 12 months, 2 years? Is it beyond that? What's the time frame for Jared Anderson to become a world champion in your eyes?
Good question. Absolutely not. I think I suppose depending on what happens, obviously, for Usyk Fury, I think obviously there's potential concerns. The belt's fracturing. So I've got how many years is Usyk and Fury really go? How many years is Usyk got? If Usyk beats Fury, how many years is he going to carry on going? For me, I don't actually see him fighting that many years. Especially if there's a rematch, he comes through that as well. I almost feel like what else is there for him to accomplish? Maybe there's a big money fight against Wilder if he can get his head together. But other than that, maybe he buys the belts fracture in say 2 years. So maybe Gerald Anderson in a sort of a 2 to 4 year window may get a shot if he can get a shot at one of those. The whole thing for me, the question mark would be like you. Great shout out Joe Parker as well. You got people like Parker, people like Joshua, circling that kind of people like Dubois that are obviously in good positions as well. That kind of circling, waiting for those opportunities to happen. So for me, it's no guarantee that Jared Anderson will win a world title, but he could potentially fight for a world title. I think somewhere between the next sort of 2 to 4 years. I think he really needs. That might be premature. I think he'd be like 60. No, I think he really needs to get to sort of 20 before we even talk about world title. I really think he needs sort of 4, 5, 6 fights at least. Like you said, against fringe level guys that aren't necessarily on that level. I mean, I'd even entertain him fighting someone like Wardley. I'd even just see where he is, just to fight sort of so we kind of know roughly where he is. Put him in like on someone like that. I mean, obviously those are sort of fights that I think would be exciting. Equally, opponent here is for Yoka, it's for Kevin Lorena, guys of that name. I think maybe but those sort of kind of names as well. You want to see him in with Charles Moore matched. I think it also tempered some of that kind of enthusiasm, even though Charles Martin's not a pushover. He's obviously been, dried and diminished and demeaned a bit from what happened with AJ, but equally, like he's not a bad sort of name actually to have on that record. So I think we need 5 fights. I'm going to say 2 to 5 years we might see him fight for it. I don't think he'll necessarily even win it in 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, very good, mate. I agree with you. I'd be very surprised if he wins one within the next 18 months, 2 years. He might get a shot, but might lose. Kind of like what we saw with Dubois losing to Usyk, getting a shot out of nowhere. It wouldn't surprise me if Anderson did get a shot but lost. And depends on what happens with the belt. But ultimately, yeah, I think you're more likely the 2 year plus time frame. I totally agree, mate. Just before we finish, like we always do now, I want you to give me your prediction for this fight against Ryad Merhy. Merhy beat Tony Yuka obviously last time out. Only defeats came to Kevin Lorena and Arsen Gulmarian. So yeah, Jared Anderson, Ryad Merhy. Who wins? How? Tell me in 20 seconds.
I'm going to go Jared Anderson just because he's the prospect, the money's behind him. I think I'm going to go points. Maybe a late stoppage, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be an early blast through. I can see maybe a later stoppage, but I think it's going to be points personally.
Very interesting, mate. Very interesting. I'm agreeing with who you think will have their hand raised. Jared Anderson, I do agree, but I'm going to go for the stoppage with Jared Anderson. Probably mid. I go to mid four, round 4, 5, 6. Merhy is not a heavyweight, really. Campaigned most of his life a cruiserweight, and I think the size and stuff will tell. I think as soon as Anderson lands on him, he'll know about it certainly. So yeah, I'm going with Anderson as well, but I'm going for the knockout. Guys, let us know your thoughts on this fight. Is Anderson the future of the heavyweight division? How soon will he win a world title? Is this a tough test? Could he even come unstuck here? Let us know all of those things in the comments, and drop a wee like, and obviously subscribe, share, all of that. Plenty of other content left on the channel as well. So yeah, appreciate you checking all that out. Elliot, thanks very much as always for joining me, mate, and I'll speak to you again soon.